Considering the 15-year cycle of hot garbage that the Resident Evil franchise churned out on the silver screen, the lackluster reception of this movie's trailers, and that paragon of focus group contribution with the title of Welcome to Raccoon City, suffice it to say, this film's back was firmly planted against the wall upon release. Not the impression you want to make when attempting a fresh start, not the foot you want to start off on. I don't agree with the rule of a big splash for your beginning because there is such a thing as build up to the crescendo. So, of all the iconic locations from the game like the clock tower, a hospital, graveyard, when the film opens on an orphanage, I was left thinking, I hope they've got something good in mind. You see some thing's hand reaching for a sleeping child, just for the little girl to wake from her bed, witnessing her visitor skulking in the shadows. The curious child goes out in search of this new friend. She just wanders the corridors unconcerned and unattended. You'd think security would be a little tighter in a horror movie. I mean, who's pulling the strings around here? She sees a tent in the middle of a classroom and regrets walking in on that scene from The Sixth Sense. Her mysterious friend vanishes within the tent, leaving a Humpty Dumpty doll behind. We get a predictably needless jump scare
Not even God can
as Dr. Birkin, yanks her right out of there. Great bedside manner, Doc. And it's revealed that this is Claire Redfield, accompanied at the orphanage by her brother Chris. But her mysterious visitor soon returns to tuck her in about as nightmarish a fashion as a monster under your bed could. Aha. So, your first impression was a flashback of a non-starter. Curious. Well, if the movie's going to give us that tangent of an intro, I'ma shoehorn this video's sponsor. If you're a frequent customer of Samsung the way that I am, you purchase everything from your TV and 4K players, from tablets and cell phones from the trusted brand. If you're already using Jabra headsets as your preferred audio tech provider, like I plan to very soon, then you know they provide a whole host of listening electronics ranging from workout earbuds, Bluetooth music headsets, and office hearing devices. If you use the link in the description for either Samsung or Jabra purchases, it'll help the channel out tremendously. With the promotional considerations accounted for, it's on with the show. So grown-up Claire wakes from her repressed childhood in abrupt fashion and, wouldn't you know, she's apparently hitched a ride from the video game's truck driver. This will end well. When I heard word that Umbrella Corps had abandoned ship, closed up shop, and had vacated its personnel from the town, I thought this a genuinely interesting wrinkle. As depraved as this conglomerate was for playing God with human genes, imagine the possibilities and the irony if the necessary evil was all that stood between their abominations and an unsuspecting city. And they just skipped town. What if they did so in order to use Raccoon City itself as a testbed to unleash their experiments on? It's appropriate to refer to the monologue that the trucker goes on as an exposition dump, considering the verbal diarrhea he espouses explaining Claire's plot, backstory, motivation, location. The driver's inclusion means he's got a hitchhiker he's got a hit on with his truck. Exactly at the 10-minute mark, he's right on time with that collision course and gives her the rundown. After he sweeps her off her feet with his driving, she shows she's got a good head on her shoulders when she asks for his insurance. His doggo smells a gold digger and laps up the DNA evidence from the truck just to be on the safe side. After all, man's best friend. When the hot date sees Claire emerge from the car, she figures three's a crowd and leaves the scene, which gives the trucker cold feet, so he bails. Way to go, Redfield. When you're not running away from an orphanage lab, you're breaking up a necrophilic tryst before the party can get started. Are you ever going to work on your abandonment issues? As grateful as I am for the late 90s setting, I would have appreciated it if they gave it a period-specific feel. There's got to be a happy medium between shallow comic book adaptations of that decade, like Dark Phoenix and Captain Marvel, and the overdose of, now that's what I call 90s, from the first Netflix Fear Street. So, at the diner, we get what should have been character introductions of our remaining roster of the series regulars, but frankly, none of these characters look or act like their gaming counterparts. I mean, Mustafa Ali, for instance. Yes, I will call him that for the remainder of this review, because that damn sure ain't Leon Kennedy. Jill Valentine bears about as uncanny a similarity to her namesake as Jesse Eisenberg resembles Lex Luthor. And they seal the deal with one cringeworthy video game reference.
What? Still a sandwich now.
You know, there's a way to actually say that. You know what? Moving on. We meet our Albert Wesker being a prick. I'll admit, this film's general setup has become well-trodden over the years, especially considering its gaming remakes. So, not only should they have experimented with shakeups to both plot and character, a fresh start almost demands it, and a revamp of Albert Wesker is the perfect specimen. Having said that, going from puppet master in the games to corporate stooge in the film isn't the best route towards subverting expectations. I get breaking in the new guy, but Mustafa is reduced to such a doormat, it brings a tear to the eye of the waitress, to the point that she cries blood. Must be something in the air when a crow goes mental and kamikazes into the window. Isn't that one of the signs of the apocalypse? The trucker drops Claire off, and his dog does a heel turn and bites the hand that feeds him. Claire returns home to some freakish-looking neighbors and cold pizza. She catches up with her brother Chris, and it's hard to take this exchange seriously when she's wearing a helmet. She explains the truck accident, and Chris speaks his cop jargon. Claire mentions she's got a contact that's kept his ear to the ground on Umbrella Corps' illegal activities, which can only mean we've got our conspiracy theory podcaster cliche. It never ends. 5 of the 6 in just 1 year. We pay a visit to the William Birkin's residence, and the good doctor gets a call in the middle of the night. He assures his wife that it's fine, nothing is the matter. They just have to pack their belongings, get the hell out of Dodge, never look back, and hey, is that a citywide alarm bell? Don't worry your pretty little head. An air raid siren in a video game adaptation, what could go wrong? And with that life-threatening alarm, the whole town's on notice, and not a second too soon for Claire, who notices a neighbor, Don, popped over for sugar. Blood sugar. Mighty neighborly of you. Of course, we get the blood scroll stereotype. What zombie media is complete without it? Back at Police HQ, when you're not getting clumsy references to the games that the movie probably thinks is clever, they're shoehorning in exposition on the town's history. Boy, this script could have used some finesse. Mustafa's debasement is in full effect at the station when the commissioner predictably overdoses on the yelling. Birkin is booking it and almost hits Claire, which somehow triggers a flashback of where Claire was a youngin'. That goes nowhere. The trucker's 18-wheeler crashes right in front of the police station where Mustafa Ali is sound asleep at his post. Can you blame him? Wouldn't you be too if you were listening to late 90s teen pop? Of course, he's listening to a Walkman. Sony's got to get their product placement in for an obsolete device as old as the gaming franchise. But honestly, wouldn't he have felt the vibrations of a truck that size careening towards him, let alone the reverberations and heat from the explosion? But that logic gap ain't half as absurd as the sight of the flaming zombie waltzing on in, seemingly moving to the beat of It's Just a Little Crush by Jennifer Page. The only way this scene could have been improved was if he dinged the bell at the front desk and reported seeing pink elephants. Commissioner Fatso can't get Deputy Doofy off his back, and when Mustafa Ali asks if they should ask someone for help, Police Chief Wiggum appropriately bellows, "Who are you gonna call? You're the police!" With that level of sarcasm very much appreciated, it's worth repeating that just because you're a rookie on the force does not equate to incompetence. What it does equate to is effectively relegating Mustafa Ali as this movie's Jon Snow. Choppering over to the Arklay Mountains, the coppers find an overturned squad car Bravo team. As if that encouraging sign isn't uplifting enough, they hear strange squealing sounds from the forest. Jill can't help herself and just tries way too hard to play macho. They arrive at the Malice Palace and, judging from the blood on the rug, the party started without them. Commissioner Gordo bails the barricade at the edge of town when Umbrella guards begin firing at escapees. This is a job for anybody but me. Just as mostly peaceful protesters fail to socially distance at the gate, Chief Blubbers reports back to work, but he's got company.
Yeah, I've been starving them, teasing them, singing off key. Me may mamo, me moo mamo. No,
This dumbass Flatfoot unloads the entirety of his revolver, to which Claire saves him from bad CGI dogs. But she couldn't save the rest of us from it. Very sad. While the zombies are getting restless at the gates, the Fuzz explore the mansion, and I gotta say, the game reference of the first mansion, zombie slowly turning its head, falls pretty flat, and not just because the trailer spoiled it. We're then treated to a pair of jump scares when the Walking Dead show up in full force, and I gotta admit, the cannibalism is pretty tame for an R-rated film. The chopper pilot gets caught off guard while on duty and chewed out for good measure. Serves him right. Wesker thinks now is a good time to play some P&E, while the pilot decides to catch up on his reading in the mansion library. Mustafa Ali gets embarrassed yet again, this time by Claire in the gun locker because why would an officer know a damn thing about handling firearms? The conspiracy theorist is revealed to be locked up. One would think a whistleblower for a major conglomerate would have been Epstein, but sure, the basement of the police department in an underground jail cell ought to keep him under wraps. You're telling me that Mustafa Ali gets humiliated by the lab rat behind bars, continuously mocked throughout his interaction with this nerd, then gullibly lured by a captive inmate just to get his own gun taken from him by a prisoner?
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
How much of a bitch is this guy?
Bitch, please! How much we gonna rock? Then we gonna roll? Then we let it pop? Don't let it go! X gon' give it to ya!
Watching Mustafa Ali get rescued yet again by Claire ain't half as funny as witnessing the supposed expert on this science experiment get caught off guard by the looming threat while holding a weapon.
Clever girl.
So, if the helicopter crashed the mansion instead of the precinct, I was wondering if that meant that the precinct would get the quadruped through the window scene.
I guess we'll never know.
Alas. Wesker reveals he's an informant providing intel. He's confronted by Jill not to abandon his friends when he escapes through a hidden corridor any damn way. Thanks for the pep talk! The Horde break through the gate, figuring that, if they weren't invited to the mansion, they'll bring the party to the police. The countdown to the bombs dropping on the town proved to be unnecessary and non-suspenseful. A return to the orphanage triggers another pointless Claire flashback. Mustafa Ali notices the hallway light fixtures above him begin tilting in his direction, one after the other, hinting that something's crawling his way, and in all honesty, that was a good use of suspense and foreshadowing. Unfortunately, the movie doesn't agree and spoils this tension with the appearance of Lisa Trevor, the monster visiting Claire as a child from the beginning. So, she just had free reign of this children's home laboratory for 20 years, never venturing outside, even when her captors skipped town? Okay, movie. As if her placement in this movie didn't tick the fan service checkbox, the creature stalking Mustafa Ali is revealed to be a licker. If they were going to go down the route of having one mini-boss from the games go up against another when Lisa fights the Licker, I would have hoped the confrontation wouldn't have been so one-sided, let alone effortlessly won. Kinda undermines the Licker's lethality. It's good to know, after all these years, Lisa Trevor's retained her good manners when she recognizes Claire, somehow, and hands her familiar-looking keys and a nice Easter egg from the games. Apparently, Umbrella really did have some deep pockets if they managed to contract Batman to design their elaborate secret hideaways. As if the aforementioned wall-crawling Licker scene wasn't enough of a foil, there's this setup in the mansion where Chris is trying to fend off zombies while lighting his way, that I'll call shot in the dark, that really should have played a lot better if they just didn't rush through it. Naturally, Jill has to be the one to save him. Amongst the blueprints for the Black Widow program, Claire happens across film reel that I would normally call out as sequel bait, but was a faithful recreation from the game of the Ashford twins. So, I'll allow it, but don't push it, movie. While Wesker is taking in the sights, touring the Batcave, Birkin is vivisecting a zombie right in front of his family? Quality time.
No wonder this clown died. His lungs are filled with candy!
Wesker arrives and the two have a Mexican standoff over who gets their 5th vaccine booster.
Only we ain't got no Mexicans.
Strange thing to fight over, if you ask me. Birkin appreciates the bullets to the chest, but he's already shot himself up with plenty of the G-virus. Wesker gets gunned down by Jill, but he forgives her for being a bad shot. After all, she is a woman. Wesker tips off Jill about an underground train that's their ticket out of town. He tells her, "If that train leaves the station and you're not with Chris, you'll regret it, baby doll. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not when this franchise gets good, but soon and for the rest of your life. Meh." Birkin still has life in the old boy yet, even if he doesn't have the screen time to make a good villain. Or acting range. Or presence. Or a character arc. Or, oh, what the hell, we've got 20 minutes left, plenty of time for an obligatory boss battle. Jill and Chris take Birkin's kid with them on their escape route, but Chris attempts a last stand in the underground lair, which proves futile when he's gotta get rescued by his sister any damn way. The villain monologue is as bad as his creature effects. I wouldn't have done the train scene considering that other adaptation that shall not be named still bears the stink. So, apparently the Big Bang comes in the form of the town collapsing under the weight of this movie's unrealized potential. I don't know what I find more amusing about this supposed big end fight, how lame the Birkin final form looks, or how comedically short this monster match lasts. This movie tries to have Mustafa Ali save the day in the final moments, just like that rocket launcher he carries thinks it can salvage his character at the last minute. There's a Marvel mid-credits cliffhanger of sorts with sunglasses and spies that's barely worth a mention, and let's just go to my final thoughts. As mentioned in my 2021 year-end review, this film was the best of the 3 birthday gifts Resident Evil celebrated for turning 25, and at best, it was decent. This was the electric razor of anniversary presents, instead of something like a bottle of Hennessy Privilege to toast the occasion. Yeah, it's functional, but it's not exactly what you want, nor an offering that drums up much excitement. I know I busted all over this film. Wait, what? I'm aware I was riding it a little hard. Oh, hold on. I want you to motorboat me with them mommy milkers before I plow you like an open field.
That's what I'm talking about!
It's cool, we all want the same thing.
Thank you, Jill.
Okay.
I realize my comments may have been harsh about this movie's plot, but I actually did enjoy it. There was some form of effort put into this reboot, and you can tell that the handlers did have an appreciation for the source material. I just pray that they get the right talent in front of and behind the camera. If you're this movie's studio, Sony, How can you look at your Spider-Man franchise for all its feats and failures, its blemishes and its blockbusters, and not want to replicate the same success on your gaming adaptation, at least in terms of critical reception? After 25 years of the RE franchise, 10 movies, and 3 decades of video game movies, we're at the point that not bad ain't good enough. We've waited a quarter of a century for a proper translation of this series to film. As in the game, the Birkin mutations are more appreciated when they're gradually spread out over multiple encounters of increasing gruesome factor. I fear that they only jammed RE2's story into what should have been a standalone Mansion story because of the sequel's remake in 2019. As such, you'll pardon the pun, but I fear they bit off more than they could chew with adapting more than one of the games. Much like how that first great horror original continues to elude Netflix, the same can be said of video game movies as we inch closer to 30 years of failed adaptations. How's that for an anniversary? If the handlers of Resident Evil's movie rights plan to move forward with a film franchise, adapt one game at a time, show the same love and care that the games do with the remakes, no, not that one, that's more like it, and pony up the dough on talented directors, writers, and actors. Otherwise, this series really will go the Spider-Man route when you send this latest reboot to the glue factory and clean slate these movies 3 separate times in 1 decade. I'm Inkarnate, and I ain't just a big deal, I'm the real deal.